So my name's Jody Morgan. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I live here in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm a mother to one daughter who is a graduate of the Ohio State University. I grew up in a nice neighborhood. I didn't really want for anything. My dad worked full-time. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, kind of that Betty Crocker type of situation. It was a good childhood. Around sixth grade, my parents got divorced. Things started to change. So from about 12 until 18, things were different. I didn't get along with my mom, so I chose to go live with my dad, which then included a dad's significant other. So that was a challenge. But I still lived with my dad because I got along better with my dad, and my brother lived with my mom. But we all lived in the same city and went to the same schools and still kind of had a relatively normal life, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
You know, I think that the biggest things that stand out of my childhood are the death of my grandmother. She was probably my best friend, my biggest advocate. I started to not pay attention in class. I'm talkative to begin with, but like I would talk out more. I was mean to other kids. It was very hard for me to make friends. And my parents sent me to counseling, and it did nothing. High school was relatively good for me. The acting out stopped. I made my best friend, who's still my best friend today. She's the godmother to, my daughters. And, but I still experienced mental health challenges going as far as I think it was my junior year. I was acting in a play. My anxiety got the best of me, and I took half a bottle of Tylenol. And I didn't really know that I wanted to kill myself. I just know that I needed something from someone, and I didn't know how to get it. And I remember going to the hospital and the tube down my throat and charcoal and all that kind of stuff. But I also remember not staying inpatient anywhere and just kind of being sent home after a day or 36 hours or something like that. So
how did your mental health symptoms progress over the years?
It got a lot worse. I was accepted to the University of Toledo. So was my best friend. We were going to room together. Life was good. And I met somebody my senior year of high school who was older than I was. And I thought, you know what? I don't need college. I am going to pack up a U-Haul, take whatever belongings my family will let me take, and he and I are going to move to Tennessee with his family. Looking back on it, that is poor mental health. That was very, very poor mental health and decision making. However, at the time, I thought I was this independent, carefree person. It went downhill fast. I was married in September of 1996. I had just graduated high school in May of 1996, and grew up, like I said, in a really good neighborhood and didn't want for anything, and moved to Tennessee. And God love the state of Tennessee. It's a beautiful state, but where we were living was nothing like where I grew up.
Very rural.
Very
middle
rural.
Of nowhere.
Piggly Wiggly. The whole living in his parents' garage that they had redone. I saw my first cockroach. I saw multiple of them thereafter, but I saw my first one. It was very different, and his parents would not let us live with them unless we were married.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Justice of the peace, khaki shorts, t-shirt. September 11th, I said, I do. And that started a series of traumas, a series of poor decisions, a lot of poor decisions that were all, as one judge put it, you must be either on drugs or seriously mentally ill at the time. So, it just, from that point on, it just got worse. Anxiety set in, depression set in. I made it till December of 96 before calling my dad and begging for him to send me home, got on a plane, came back to Cleveland, and thus began the divorce and the continued road of mental poor care of my mental illness. Let's put it that way. I made a lot of mistakes even after getting divorced. Found myself lying, cheating, stealing. I stole money from a company that I worked for. I took money from petty cash. I was what I thought was smart as a bookkeeper and was able to use my company, credit card, and then was in a relationship where my significant other stole my company credit card.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 2004, 2005 were really challenging years. Like I said earlier, I had a judge who said, you must either be on drugs or severely mentally ill to have done these things. And I'm like, I was stealing the money to pay bills. I wasn't out gallivanting or, things like that. But okay.
Right. Yes.
So needless to say, my probation officer was one of the good guys. He was one who wanted to help. He wanted to give me resources. I got linked up with the Cuyahoga County Adams Board. That's when I met Chief Denahan and their now CEO, Scott Osecki. He was not that at the time, but, and they put me on a bus. And they put me on a bus and brought me here to Columbus and said, go tell these people why we need Medicaid expansion, why you need insurance, why people like you. And I'm like, who's going to listen to me? Like, I'm nobody. They're like, nope, you have a story to tell. It's important. This is what you're going to do. And they did that multiple times. They were some of the best bus trips of my life because Chief always stopped at Golden Corral in Columbus and Dublin on his way back for the all-you-can-eat buffet for everybody on the bus. That was his thing. And I did that. I did that a few times. And I started to feel better about myself. I started working on the advocacy committee. I was president of it for a year. And I made some really great lifelong friends through it. And then my mental health took over again. I thought that I was better than the system. I didn't have to go to probation. I was doing these great things. I was kind of working part-time. I was taking care of my daughter. I was, volunteering, all these things. And I thought, what's the problem?
Probation has a tendency to see things the other way.
First thought wrong.
Right.
That's probation didn't appreciate that. So I got violated and spent 30 days back in jail. So it was a rough period of time. I went on disability because
you needed it.
I needed it. I had to survive. I moved out and into my first apartment of my own because I had a decent disability check. Plus being a parent, you get a little bit extra money. And that was 8, 10, 13 years ago. And that was kind of the first step to taking care of me again. I felt independent. I had furniture. I had my daughter. We had 2 cats. I could cook. I could clean. I was able to. My brother sold me his car. I passed my driver's license exam again. I had to do maneuverability twice the second time, which was very sad because I passed it the first time by myself just once, but whatever. And things were better. Experienced another round of trauma because of a person in my life who took advantage of me and took advantage of my kindness, but that brought me here to Columbus. But I had learned enough to be able to stand up for myself. I met a doctor at Ohio State here at Wexner who said, I don't know what all this is, but you're done with it. This meds are not your problem. And she specialized in working with women who were, late 20s, early 30s, who had mental illness and had had children. And she's like, yeah, you don't have borderline personality disorder. You don't have this. You don't have this. You are adult onset ADHD with anxiety, depression, but that's part of life. Like, we're going to work on it. And it took a long time to figure out what worked, what didn't, but she was a firm believer in this is what, and I did. I started to feel better. I started to have creativity again. I was able to come off disability and start working. It's when I took a job here in Columbus working for an advocacy agency.
It feels like it shouldn't be this hard, but it is. So what would you say are those coping skills that you've learned over the years that really are beneficial, that really help for you?
Finding my voice, using my advocacy skills to find my voice, and when I don't feel right about something, speaking up. That's a big one for me, because I would just stuff it down. I was a people pleaser. Everything anyone else wanted or needed, I could do it. And I've learned to speak up. The other biggest ones for me are, thinking before I speak. I have not mastered it yet. Promise you I haven't, but in a lot of cases, I've learned how to write things down. I always thought I could just keep everything in my head and I would remember it. And for me, that's important. The self-care, the recovery, the reaching out, the showing up when you're supposed to. There were so many times that I just wanted to give up. I wanted to turn and just run away, and everyone would be better off without me. It's not true. It's not true. I cherish the friendships that I've rekindled over the years. My best friend from high school, like I said, is still my best friend. I've actually had relationships that have lasted more than, 5 seconds. I have friendships that have been going on for 10, 12, 15 years now. Don't give up. Find what you love. Find a love of something. Reading, writing, painting, cooking, whatever. Find what you love and do it, and ask for help. Like I said, that's been my biggest. I'm always afraid to make that call. I need your help. And don't underestimate people. That's my biggest one. I always underestimate others. It's mental health doesn't have a program always like AA, but there are things out there. NAMI was great. Our Adams board in Cuyahoga County at the time was great. I have found resources here in Columbus that are just supportive for mental health, and just, ask. People will want to help. And I tell people mental illness is a chemical imbalance. It's not something to be ashamed of. I've learned over the years, it's not, I didn't cause it. I might have had some traumas and some bad things happen in life, but medicine for me helps.
Yeah.
And I still see a psychiatrist and a therapist, and those are very important things for me.
Yeah, absolutely.